In this video, highly reputable universities provide irrefutable evidence that your decisions are indeed contaminated. Is our personality in our DNA?
Dr. Chopra comes at this as a doctor, as a scientist, and a very eloquent seeker, given us so much to think about.
We've been able to look at the brain. We've been able to look at gene expression. We've been able to look at cell markers of aging, telomerase, telomere length. We've been able to look at what are called inflammatory markers. In other words, everything that's happening in the body at a biological cell level. And then we're looking at what is called the epigenome, which is the shell of proteins outside the genome, and how these work together. And what we are finding is remarkable. You know, in the beginning, nobody would believe us, but now we have collaborations with Harvard, UCSF, UCSD, Scripps, with digital technology, with Duke University, with Mount Sinai. We can look at a blood sample, and we can tell you if you're experiencing samadhi occasionally or not, if your mind is quiet or not, if you're falling into the place where he
Even
has...
whether our parents experience this.
Parents too. In fact, the epigenetics shows that your experiences now, which are not in your brain, by the way. Everybody says, my experience is in my brain. It's not in your brain. Your experiences are not in your body. Your experiences are in a non-local consciousness, which is not in space-time. In Hawaii, they have these temples and cow farms. If a cow has been zapped electrically, the next generation of cows will not go to the fence. They already know it's electrical, and they might get shocked. Okay. Then the following generation. Now, people have done experiments right here where you take mice and you have them smell wintergreen, which is a very pleasant smell. Then they get mild electrical shocks. The next 7 generations of mice will be scared by smelling wintergreen. Where is the seat of this personality? Where is it coming from?
So the question is it in our DNA? Do we have control, or are we responding to someone else's behavior?
To show this, we took 2 men, Mr. Nice and Mr. Nasty, and placed them in a controlled environment. Then we asked several volunteers to meet them and discuss different subjects.
Favourite films?
Yeah, well, got plenty of those.
You go first.
What the volunteers didn't know was that while Mr. Nice was being friendly and warm, Mr. Nasty was being as negative and as difficult as possible.
No.
Not really.
But crucially, both Mr. Nice and Mr. Nasty had been asked to deliberately move their bodies in specific ways.
So you got any more favourites?
While cameras watched for a response in the volunteers that would reveal what was going on in their mind. Gradually, as the conversations developed, an extraordinary thing began to happen. The volunteers with Mr. Nice gradually began to copy him.
They kind of used those well, and the acting was so good, they kind of all got away with it. And the other ones, Last of the Mohicans.
No, I didn't see
I mean, I shouldn't, there's no reason to suggest that we should like that, but there's some...
Meanwhile, those with Mr. Nasty didn't copy him at all.
Well, I'm really enjoying 24 at the moment. Have you seen that?
Saw it once. Yeah, no, didn't like it very much.
No?
No.
And I think it's the sort of thing I like going to the cinema with myself.
Because the volunteers like Mr. Nice,
I mean, some people say they like to, share
their mind prompted them to mimic him.
No, I often go by myself.
A subconscious attempt to strengthen the bond between them.
Because I've been in the business. Well, that's what everyone says, it's fantastic.
There are so many great people that you can
Fantastic.
Consider this study of modifying the environment.
Yes, persuasion. Persuasion is the practice of getting people sympathetic to your message before they experience it. It is what you say immediately before you deliver your messages There's this interesting study. A guy goes to a shopping mall in France, and he tries to get women's phone numbers as they pass various shops so he could call for a date. One of them is a shoe store, and another was a bakery. But in neither of those cases was he very successful. He only got a number 13% of the time. But there was one kind of shop that doubled his success rate when women were passing it. A flower shop. Why? Because flowers put women in a mindset of romance.
Not consciously, persuasive.
If we are paying attention to something, that's how we decide to pay attention. But a communicator can reroute our attention to something that isn't important, but make it seem important as a consequence. Now, marketers, some of them, have studied persuasion's potency. One online furniture store tested images of fluffy clouds, cold hard cash on its homepage. Those who saw the background depiction of clouds searched the site for more comfortable furniture. Those who went to the site that had money in the background became cost conscious and preferred to purchase less expensive furniture. Almost no one recognizes that the clouds or the coins had any impact on it.
What we do in our experiment, we very briefly expose people to a warm or cold substance. And what we expect to happen is that simple experience with a warm substance or a cold substance will prime people to sort of activate these feelings of warmth and comfort and the things that we've learned about since we were very young.
Volunteers for the experiment are asked to hold a warm cup of coffee as they are met by Lawrence. They have been primed with heat. The purpose of the experiment is to record participants' judgments about Lawrence's colleague, Randy.
It was awesome. It was good until I got stranded in Florida because of the snowstorm. New York on Friday. So.
And here's the killer question. Would you give Randy a permanent job?
Based on your brief interaction with Randy, or would you hire him as project manager?
Seemed like a generally, sure, yes, friendly guy. So yeah, I would say.
Yeah, why not?
Saying warm things about a stranger might just be the normal polite response. Time to cool things down. Except for the temperature of the drink. Identical conditions. The same conversation with Randy.
How was your break? You got that?
And 6 minutes later, the same questions from Lawrence.
Based on your brief interaction with him, would you recommend him or would you hire Randy as project manager?
As a leader? I'm not sure. Based on the brief interaction? No.
Maybe not from the impression that I got.
The experiment shows, remarkably, that a brief encounter with a beverage could see you either hired or fired. It's a powerful effect, and one that might have worrying applications.
Dr. Daniel Kahneman received the Nobel Prize for his work on behavioral economics. Here he speaks of the two systems that we humans rely on to make decisions.
At the heart of human thinking, there's a conflict between logic and intuition that leads to mistakes.
This question concerns this nice bottle of champagne I have here. Millicene 2005, it's a good year, genuinely nice vintage bottle.
These people think they're about to use slow, sensible System 2 to make a rational decision about how much they would pay for a bottle of champagne. But what they don't know is that their decision will actually be taken totally without their knowledge by their hidden, fast autopilot, System 1. And with the help of a bag of ping-pong balls, we can influence that decision.
I've got a set of numbered balls here from 1 to 100 in this bag. I'd like to reach in and draw one out at random for me, if you would.
First, they've got to choose a ball.
Number says 10.
10.
10.
10.
They think it's a random number, but in fact it's rigged. All the balls are marked with the low number 10.
What we do is purposefully we give people a first decision that is clearly meaningless.
Would you be willing to pay £10 for this nice bottle of vintage champagne?
I would, yes.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
This first decision is meaningless, based as it is on a seemingly random number. But what it does do is lodge the low number 10 in their heads. Now for the real question, where we ask them how much they'd actually pay for the champagne.
What's the maximum amount you think you'd be willing to pay?
20?
Okay.
£7.
£7, okay.
Probably £10.
A range of fairly low offers. But what happens if we prime people with a much higher number, 65 instead of 10?
What does that one say?
65.
65, okay.
65.
Okay.
It says 65.
How will this affect the price people are prepared to pay?
What's the maximum you would be willing to pay for this bottle of champagne?
40?
£45.
45, okay.
50.
40 quid.
Okay.
£50?
£50?
Yeah, I'd pay between 50 and 80 pounds.
Between 50 and 80?
Yeah.
Logic has gone out the window. The price people are prepared to pay is influenced by nothing more than a number written on a ping pong.
Let's look at the use of ghost options to influence your decision.
Imagine I give you a choice. Do you want to go for a weekend to Rome, all expenses paid, hotel, transportation, food, breakfast, the continental breakfast, everything, or a weekend in Paris? Now, weekend in Paris, weekend in Rome, these are different things. They have different food, different culture, different art. Now, imagine I added a choice to the set. Imagine I said a weekend in Rome, a weekend in Paris. What if it was a trip to Rome, all expenses paid, transportation, breakfast, but doesn't include coffee in the morning? If you want coffee, you have to pay for it yourself. It's €2.50. Now, in some ways, given that you can have Rome with coffee, why would you possibly want Rome without coffee? It's an inferior option. But guess what happened? The moment you add Rome without coffee, Rome with coffee become more popular, and people choose it. The fact that you have Rome without coffee makes Rome with coffee look superior, and not just to Rome without coffee, even superior to Paris. Here are two examples of this principle. This was an ad from The Economist a few years ago that gave us three choices. An online subscription for $59, a print subscription for $125, or you could get both for $125. I took this and I gave it to 100 MIT students. I said, what would you choose? And these are the market share. Most people wanted the combo deal. Thankfully, nobody wanted the dominated option. But now, if you have an option that nobody wants, you would take it off, right? So I printed another version of this when I eliminated the middle option, and I gave it to another 100 students. Here's what happens. Now the most popular option became the least popular, and the least popular became the most popular. What was happening is that option that was useless in the middle was useless in the sense that nobody wanted it. But it wasn't useless in the sense that it helped people figure out what they wanted. In fact, relative to the option in the middle, which was only the print for $125, the print and web for $125 looked like a fantastic deal. And as a consequence, people chose it. The general idea here, by the way, is that we actually don't know our preferences that well. And because we don't know our preferences that well, we're susceptible to all of these influences from the external forces.
This practice is quite evident at McDonald's. Here's a sample menu of fries at McDonald's. A small fry cost $1.39, a medium $1.79, and a large $1.89. As you can see, when you buy a small fry, you get 37 grams for 70 cents. But if you move from the medium to the large, you get 35 grams for just 10 cents more. Ladies and gentlemen, the medium fries is a ghost option that McDonald's has placed, knowing fully well that you will move to the large fries. In addition to the well-known biases we cited earlier, research studies conducted by reputable universities are highlighting some serious facts that our decisions are indeed contaminated and manipulated.
We train with an emphasis on the 3 M's: the message, the messenger, and the method. We have in-house workshops and public workshops on decision-making and negotiating. Do let us know if we can help you. Thank you for watching.
Remember, every action is a decision and every interaction is a negotiation.